I am puzzling through Doomsday Song by W.H. Auden, British poet. Um, and yeah, it's one of those. I think I find with poetry, I basically just have to grab a poem and think about it for an ungodly amount of time. If I'm a slow reader as a fiction reader, I'm even slower as a poetry reader. I, I find that the only way I'm ever going to get into a poem is if I sit with one poem for days and days, if not weeks. I've actually made a concerted effort this time. I'm not going to memorize the poetry because that was even making me go slower. And to be honest, I've probably forgotten the poetry that I memorized for those ones. So I'm puzzling through a poem at the moment, and there's a good thing with poetry of just sitting with your confusion of your not knowingness. Um, and for me, determinedly not trying not to do too much research to tell someone else to tell me doing what a poem is about. It's almost like doing a crossword puzzle where you just look up all the solutions. It's like, well, what's the fun enjoyment in that? It's making your own connections, your own stuff, and I do think that poetry should stand on its own. That if there's a key, it should be in the actual piece of work. If it isn't, well, the key's going to get lost someday, and then the poem isn't going to mean a goddamn thing. So yeah, that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'll bring that to you. Um, lines like, was it, a jackass language shocks poets who can only pun, is the line that is kind of going through my brain at the moment. It's like, what the heck does that mean? I mean, there's a part before it about the torrents mock poets who in days gone by could, get paid for every cry. Um, and and there's this thing of kind of poets used to get paid for every cry, but now they're just getting mocked. Um, and like, a jackass language shocks poets who can only pun. And this is a very highly structured poem. It's definitely got it's got a consistent rhyming structure. How illiterate am I in poetry to that degree? It doesn't really interest me that much, the whole rhyming structure. It's okay, there's a rhyming structure there, and that's why this poem sounds the way it does. But it's like, a jackass language shocks poets who can only pun, which, pun is sort of maybe the lowest form of wordplay, but poets are, a lot of them, it is about wordplay. It's about making the words play. Uh, and whereas a jackass language is sort of the language we have. It's like, it's a language that it brays, and it's kind of a hybrid, and it's like, yeah, jackass. What is a jackass? Is that a mixture of two animals? I have to take a look at that. There's the purity of poetry, and I'm getting serenaded. Well, I don't know if I'm getting serenaded, or is I'm doing one project and there's another fellow across the fence doing another project. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of like share with myself, you, that idea of, I find poetry like the most. It's a different type of reading for me because it's such a close reading, which I love close reading, obviously, or else I wouldn't have all my mind-numbingly tedious videos on it. But just getting to stop and like consider, like, well, why did you use the word jackass, and what are the illusions? What are the things that I can come up with that the poet might have meant, and punning, as punning is also just a low form. There's jackass, which you might be considered a low form of animal, which I'm gonna have to research now and say, like, what is a jackass? That's the other thing, is to kind of look, because like, earlier poem, I looked at the owl. It's like, well, what does an owl mean? And like, the surface thing for an owl is like, well, there's owl the creature, there's owl's wisdom, but then there was the idea of owl as being an unclean creature, as being in the Christian anti-Semitic tradition of it being a portrayal of a Jewish person. And I mean, you've got the hooked nose of a hooked beak of an owl. You get into definitely kind of the anti-Semitism of the stuff. So it's just like interesting richness of getting the history of the language, getting the history of us as human beings, and just how magical words are. All right.